Hello, everyone. So in this session, you're going to start from task 4. This is our second part of the management accounting costing. So we'll start from question number 4, and we'll see how many questions you can do. And I'll try to complete this question maybe with another part. So let's have a look. Question number 4. What you have here. This question is from the apportionment, and this question will be definitely in the exam. So you need to make sure you understand this question, because anytime you do the exam for the management accounting costing, this question will be always there. So let's read this question. Says Peace Limited is preparing its budget for the first quarter of the next year. The following costs are relevant. We have a depreciation, that is 168,000, rent rates and insurance 68,000, supervisor wages 65, light, heat and power 17,000. Supervisor wages are apportioned on the basis of driver labor hour. So you need to remember that. So when you have a supervisor wages, so all sort of like indirect cost, or all sort of like overhead, we have to apportion or reapportion, or if the question give us already some allocation, we have to see it. So this question is very common, so make sure you understand the difference between the allocation, apportionment and the reapportionment. So we have a few things here. We have a department and also we have a carrying amount, we have a floor space, we have a driver, labor, we have indirect labor, number of employee and number of store requisition. Now we have some support cost center here. On the support cost center, we can see we have a vehicle maintenance, fuel and parts store, and general admin. So the story here is like all these service cost. So you have a 3 service cost center, that is one, vehicle maintenance and the fuel and the general admin. So all these 3 costs we have to reapportion to the profit center. So ideally what happened, the product have a service cost center and the profit center, but ultimately the service cost center don't have any income. For example, if you think about Argos, and now maybe Argos make a sort of product, but in the store they just sell it. So a store don't have any separate income. All the income generate from the product. So there is a lot of car company, for example, BMW and other car company, the store only sell. So actual profit come from the product. So at the end, all the store or the maintenance or any sort of cost that has to be go inside of the product, because the service center don't have any income at all. So let's have a look. So we have here overhead are allocated or apportioned using the most appropriate basis. This one we have to know based on which basis we're going to use for which overhead. So you need to have a very good idea the apportionment. The total overhead of the support cost center are then reapportioned to the 2 production center using the direct method. Now the direct method is quite easy. All you have to do, you have to find the total support cost center, that is service cost center, and you have to reallocate or allocate to the profit center. So you have to move all the service cost to the production cost. Then you have some more information here. Say 55% of the maintenance department time is spent in the UK service profit center, and the remaining for the international. So you have a 2 profit center. One is UK service and another one is international. So 50% for 55 for the UK. That means 45 will be for the international. The store costs are to be apportioned between the 2 profit center on the basis of number of store requisitions. So you need to find how many is the store requisition. You have to add this 2 and we have to multiply to find it out how much it is. So you'll do it that. And we have a general admin that will be apportioned equally. So whatever it is, you have to make it half of for the UK and for the international. All right, let's start with that. So first one, we have to find the basis of apportionment. Now depreciation, always we use the carrying value. Rent and rates, always the floor space. Supervisor wages, that the question said use the driver labor cost. Indirect labor, this one we can see is already allocated. So the indirect labor we have here. So the indirect labor we can see here, the cost is already allocated. So it says indirect labor cost 53,500, 27,600, and 43,400 is already allocated. So you don't have to do any apportionment, we just allocate it. And light, heat, and the power is always based on the floor space. So now we have the thing, we have the basis of apportionment. Now we can start putting some figure. So let's have a look. So the first one, you have a depreciation. So let's have a look how much is the depreciation we have. So the depreciation we have here, we can see 168,000. So let's try to do some workings. So depreciation number one, that is 168,000. And we are using the carrying value to find the depreciation. So we'll see what is the carrying value of the asset. So you can see that's the carrying amount. So this is the carrying amount. So you have to add this two. So let's add this to 1250 plus 1750. And this gives me a total 300,000. So 300,000. This is the total carrying value. Now we have to split it to the two department. One is for the UK and one is for the international. So for the UK is 1250. So all you have to do, you have to divide that 168,000 divided by 300,000. Then for the UK, we have to multiply with 1250. And for the international, we have to multiply 1750. So let's do that. 168,000 divide 3,000 times by 1250,000, and it will give you 70,000. So for the UK, it is 70,000. And for the international, it is 98,000, the difference. So out of 168,000, 70,000 is for the UK and 98,000 for the international. So you have done the first one for the depreciation. So you're going to write this amount, 70,000, and the international we have 98,000. All right, the next one we have, that is for the rent rates. So let's try that. The rent and rates, we have 68,000, and this one you have to use based on the floor space. So rents and rates is 68,000. We have to see total floor space. We have to add all of this, the floor space. So you do the same way, 68,000. Divide the total all of this. So make the total all of this 80 plus 120 plus 56 plus 44 plus 40. That's 340,000. And we have to multiply one by one for the UK service. So we can say it is 80,000. So for the UK, we do multiply whatever the result come here, we multiply by 80,000. Then for the next one, for the international, 120. For the vehicle maintenance, 56. Also for everything, one by one. So let's do the first one. 68,000 divide 340,000 times 80,000. And that will give me 16,000 for the UK service. So let's go there and we'll write it down, 16,000 for the UK service. The same we will do for the international, that is 24. And the same way for the vehicle maintenance, that is 11200. Same way for the fuel, 8800. General admin, 8,000. And the total will be 68,000. So we split the 68,000 based on the floor space. The top one total was 168,000. Is the total of all of this. All right, move to the next one. The next one we have supervisor wages. This is based on the driver labor cost. Let's have a look. How much is the driver labor cost we have? So you have a total driver labor cost, that is this two. So let's add this 2240 plus 280. And that gives you 520 total. And we have to divide. How much is the supervisor wage? 65,000. So 65,000 divide 520. And for the UK, we multiply by 240. And for the international, we have to multiply by 280. That's it. So let's do that. So we have a direct labor supervisor wages. It is 65. So 65,000 divide 520 times by 240. And that gives me 30,000 for the UK service. And for the international, the rest, the remaining, so 35,000. So total 65,000. All right. Then we have the next one, that is indirect labor. This one is allocated, so you don't have to do anything. Just look at the figure. So indirect labor is 53, 27, and 43 is already there. They're already done for us. So we have to just write it down. So the vehicle 53, 500. Then the fuel 27, 600. And the general admin 43, 400. And we have a total 124, 500. Okay, finally we have a light and heating. The light and heating we can see have a 17,000, and we're going to use the floor space the same way we did before. So you're going to use the total floor space, so 70,000 divided by total floor space area, then multiply by 80,000 for the UK, multiply by 120 for the international, multiply by 56 for the vehicle. So we have to do the same way. So we do for the UK, we have 4,000. Then for the international, we have a 6,000. For the vehicle maintenance, 2,800. For the fuel, 2,200. Then you have a 2,000. 17,000 is the total. All right, all we have to do now, we have to make the total of the UK, international, and everything. So let's make the total. The total here is 120,000. Then for the international, the total we have 163,000. For the vehicle, total we have 67,500. Then 38,600. Then 53,400. Finally, the total is 44,500. So the one part of the apportionment is already done, and now I have to do reapportion. So the reapportion, they said we have to reapportion all these three service. So this three is the service, the support. So we have 1, 2, 3. So all these three has to go because these three don't have an income. So all of this cost we're going to move either to UK or either to international. So all they have to do. For the first one, they said for the maintenance, the first one, we have to do 55% on UK and 45% of international. The store, the next one, we have to use based on the store requisition. And general admin, the last one, you have to equally, so 50-50. So that shouldn't be difficult. Let's do that. So the total we have here for the vehicle, so 55% UK. So here it will be 55% and 45% here. So let's do that. 67,500 times 55%. That is 37,125. So you have to write 37,125, 45% on the international. That is 30,375. That's the total. 67,500 is gone. 67,500 you have to write. That's this total is gone in this two. Then move to the next one. Fuel and the part store. They said this will be based on the store requisition. So the store requisition we have 960 plus 1040. This one we have total 2000. So all we have to do, we have to divide with the total 838 and you have to multiply with 960 and 1040. So let's do that. So 38,600 divide by 2000 times by 960 and it will give us 18,528. This is for the UK service. The international service, we have the other way, the difference. That is 272. And the total is gone 38,600. So all this 3,600 we move to the UK and the international. And finally the general admin. General we have total 53,400. So this 53,400 we make it equal. So 53,400, the question said apportion it equally. So we have 26,700. 26,700. That's it. And after all you have to do, you have to make the total. And the total is here 202353. For this one 240,147. And the final, the gross total 442500. All right, so this is the part. This question look like big, but actually it is not that difficult, but it will take some time. But this question will be definitely in the exam, so make sure you revise well. All right, let's move to the next one then. Task 5. Task 5, we have this one from the absorption. So you have to say what is the budgeted overhead rate. So let's read this question. They said PHL Limited wants to review the budget against the performance for the last quarter. Budgeted and actual data is presented in the table below. So you have a UK service and you have a vehicle maintenance and the repair. So you have a budgeted overhead. That is the total overhead we have for the UK and for the vehicle. Then budgeted mile, that's the activity level, actual mile. And we have for the budgeted maintenance hour and actual maintenance hour. And the question said calculate the overhead absorption rate. Overhead absorption rate, that is OAR. OAR is very simple. All you have to do, you have to put on the top budgeted overhead and on the bottom activity level. So the budgeted overhead for the first one, UK service, we have 320, 150, and the budgeted miles. This is the activity level. Remember that always take the budget. When you calculate the OAR, always take the budgeted activity level. Activity level. So budgeted mile is 8425. This is my overhead absorption rate. Never take the actual when you calculate the OAR. So let's do that. 320, 150, divide 8425. And that gives you 38. 38. And the same way do for the maintenance. So you do 160, 160. We divide by the budgeted maintenance hour. It's 4004. And that will give you 40. So overhead absorption rate, always go with the budgeted and budgeted. Never consider the actual. All right, let's move to the next one. The next one we have here, number B. Number B is asking, identify the most appropriate budgeted overhead absorption basis for the UK Service Profit Center. Okay, so for the UK Service Profit Center, if you remember, our basis was budgeted mile. So we said that is budgeted mile. This is the most appropriate one. And for the vehicle maintenance, it was budgeted maintenance hour. So that is budgeted hour. Finally, they said number D, over or under absorb. Let's try to understand that. The data for the last quarter in the table above shows the actual mileage traveled and maintenance hour worked as well as budgeted data. If the value of the actual overhead incurred last quarter exceed the overhead absorbed for the quarter, PHL will have a under absorb or over absorb. Now, very, very careful with this one. We always look at how much we absorbed. So we said overhead absorbed. Overhead absorbed. Now, this is overhead we absorbed. Now, if we absorbed more, more than actual, this will be over absorbed. Over absorbed. If we absorbed less than actual, that means we absorb less, that will be under absorbed. So here the question is saying the actual overhead is more exceed than the overhead we absorbed. So that means we absorbed less than the actual, the next one, and that will represent under absorb. So you have to show this under absorb. So you always compare with the actual, but we ask ourselves, did we absorb more than the actual? If the answer is yes, this is over absorbed. Did we absorb less than the actual? If the answer is yes, this is under absorbed. So do not look at the actual one. Look at how much we absorbed. If we absorb less than the actual, then it is under absorbed. Finally, the next one we have here, an over absorption of overhead will be credited to the profit and loss account, because if we have a over absorption, that means if we absorb more. Let's try to understand that. For example, the overhead is expense. Let's say we said our expense will be 200. This is overhead absorbed. So basically we planned, or we said overhead will be 200 pound. But when I see the actual it says 100 pound. That means we make the over absorbed. So we make the over absorbed. We absorb more than the actual. So what will happen? I shows more expense. If I shows more expense, my profit is less, isn't it? So my actual overhead is 100, not 200. So I need to reduce the expense now so that my profit goes up, because I have a budget or I plan for the more overhead, but actually it is not. So what we have to do, we have to increase the profit now. So we'll say an over absorption of overhead will be credited to the profit and loss account, because anytime if I make credited, my profit will go up. This will decrease the expense because I shows more overhead, more expense, but it is not true, actually is less. So I have to decrease it and I have to increase my profit. It will increase the profit. So very, very careful with the over and under absorb. This question always in the exam. So make sure to revise well that area, because overhead or under absorb for over absorption is always in the exam. All right, let's do the next one then. Let's move to the next one. The next one we have here for task 6. And this task is all about the budget. So let's look at this question. In this task, we'll say this is like kind of, we have to calculate the contribution and after I have to calculate the profit. So let's read this question first. Peace Limited is planning 3 new contract for the next quarter, and the contract is RT13, RT14, and RT15. It has gathered the following data to put together forecasts for the roads. The first one, they said, the contract for the route 13 is for 4,000 miles and the charge out rate 200 per mile. Okay. And then we have the next one. The contract for 14 is 25% more than the RT13 with a chargeable rate 25% less. Okay. The contract for RT15 is 20% more than the route 13 and with a chargeable rate 40% less. Okay. The variable cost 75 for the R13. Variable cost 20% is more than R14 than R13. And variable cost for the 15 is £5 more than R13. Okay. The fixed cost for this contract 500,000 total, and it will be shared 40% to R13, 35% to R14, and 25% to R15. All right, so let's start this one, the first one. The first one, they said R13 and 4,000 mile. Okay, and the next one, they said the contract for the R14 will be 25% more than R13. So let's do 25% more. So it said 4,000 times 1.25. So 4,000 times 1.25, and that is 5,000. That's 5,000. And the next one, they said the contract for R15 is 20% more than the R13. So 20% more. So 4,000 times 1.2. So 4,000 times 1.2, 4,800. So 4,800 for the route 15. The next one, you have to do the revenue. Let's do the revenue. The first one, they said for the R13, the revenue 200 per mile. So 4,000 times 200. That will give us 800,000. And the question said don't have to take the 3 zeros, so just take 800. And the next one, they said the revenue will be 25% less for the R14 compared to R13. So normally it is 200. So I have to do 25% less. You can minus 25% from here, but I always do 0.75 because 1 is the best 100%. So if I less 25%, it gives me 0.75. So that will give me 200 times 0.75, 150. And 150 times, so you have 5,000 mile. So times 5,000 mile, and that will give you 750,000. And we take 750 here. The last one they said R15 chargeable rate is 40% less, so that's fine. So we do 200 times 0.60 times 48,000. It will give you the same thing. So 200 times 0.6 times 4800, and it's 576. 576,000. So take 576. The next one, we have the variable cost. They said variable cost 75 per mile for the road R13. So let's take this one. So R13, we have a 4,000 mile. So 4,000 times 75. 4,000 times 75, which will give you 300,000. So we just take 300. The next one, they said variable cost for the R14 will be 20% more. So, okay, that's fine. So you do 75 times 1.2 because we want to increase it 20%, and times by the mileage, 5,000. So 75 times 1.2 times 5,000, and it gives me 450. 450. And finally, the last one, they said variable costs are £5 per mile more than the R13. So R13 was 75. So if I added 5, it will be 80. So 80 times 48,000. And that gives me 384. 384. 384. All right, now we have the contribution. Contribution is basically the difference between the revenue and the variable cost. So revenue less the variable cost is give you contribution. So 800 minus 300. So the contribution will be 500. Same we do for this one, 750 minus 450, 300 is the contribution. 576 minus 384, that will give you contribution 192. Then finally have the fixed overhead. They said fixed overhead total is 500, but 40% goes to R13, so 40% here. And then we have 35% for the R14, and the remaining 25% for the R15. So let's do that. 40% of 500, so 500 times 40%. 200 is for the 13, 175 for R14, 125 for R15. Finally, have to find the profit. So contribution minus fixed cost will give us the profit. So contribution is the 500, and if we minus the fixed cost 200, it will give you the profit 300. This one will give me 125, and the last one 67. That's it. That's how we have to identify the profit from this question. All right, let's move to the next one. The next portion we have here, that is from the cost center. So let's read this question. PH will monitor and review the performance on all of his contract. Actual performance is compared against the forecast, and the responsible manager will be sent a report to review and act. So here, which manager is responsible for what? Remember, the profit manager is responsible for everything, and the cost manager only responsible for the cost, And the investment manager is responsible for all the investment decision, I mean the capital employed. So let's have a look at that. The contract manager will be sent the overall performance. The overall performance need to be sent to the profit manager because he will be then charged for all the profit calculation. The maintenance department manager will be sent a report on maintenance, so only for the cost. That's a cost manager. That's a cost center. And finally, report on the return on capital employed. Return on capital employed means investment. So if I invest some money, how much will be the return? So this sort of information we have to be sent to the investment center. All right, the next part we have, this is the ethical question. It's not the difficult one. Let's try to do this one. So the next one we have here, looking at the information in part A, indicate how you should react to the following scenarios by answering yes or no in the table. You are asked to change revenue figure by a colleague to increase the profit without any data for this or managerial authorization. Do you do this? Answer is no. If any of my colleagues ask me change the profit figure without any data or without asking the manager or the senior person, I'm not gonna do it, isn't it? A friend of yours working for a rival company means the competitive company, so with the same industry, has asked you a copy of the above forecast so that their company can put in a bid. Do you do this? The answer is no. We do not share the confidential information. So if I work in a company, because I have access to the confidential information, I do not share with other company. Then we have, you discover a mistake you have made that has a significant effect upon profit. Do you report this to a manager? Of course, if I made a mistake and if I think there is a significant impact on that, I have to report to my manager. When drawing up the forecast, you see that one of the route makes less profit than other route. You don't understand why this is? Do you ask your manager to explain? The answer is yes. If I don't understand anything, I have to ask my manager what is the reason for that. That's the ethical question. I think it's not very difficult one. So let's move to the next one, task 7, and we'll see what we have there. All right, let's read this question. Says Pace Limited is reviewing two small road contract RT4 and RT5 for the next month. The contract will require skilled drivers and the following forecasts have been prepared. Now this sort of question is from the limiting factor. So one of the factor will be limited. For example, it could be labor hour, it could be the machine hour, or it could be the material. So something will not be enough to fulfill all the demand. So you have to see which one you should make first. So it will be depends, and you have to choose based on the contribution. Remember, the contribution is not from like sales minus variable cost, but the contribution based on the limiting factor. So based on the limiting factor, how much is the contribution? You have to make the ranking and you have to take the decision based on that. So let's have a look. The contribution, you can see RT4, RT5, the total. And after that, we have the fixed cost, we have a profit, we have a mile travel for the road, and we have a total driver's time required for hours. Then we have here the next point. There is a shortage of skilled labor. That will be always the case. There'll be shortage of the skilled labor, okay? And because most of the people going for holiday, they are saying, that means they are saying only 52 skilled labor hour expected to be available for this two contact. So for this two contact, RT4 and RT5, we have only 52 skilled labor available. So we have to see, can we fulfill all the demand? So can we travel all the mile 800? Can we travel all the mile 400? Because we have only 52 hours available from the skilled labor. So complete the table that will maximize the profit. So we'll have a look at that. The first one, we have contribution per mile. So we have a total contribution for 5,600 and total mile 800. So let's do that. 5,600 divide 800. That will give me contribution per mile. and this is 7. So contribution per mile is 7. This is the same we'll do for the next one. 4800 divide 400 divided by 400, 12. Then you have the next one. This is contribution per driver hour. Contribution per driver hour. Now we have to see how much is the contribution per driver hour. So you have a total contribution 5600 again, and the hour for the driver is 56. So for the RT4, so 5600 divide 56, it should be 100. So you can say 100 per driver hour. So 100, and this one will be same, 4800 divide 24, and that will give you 200. Now we'll look at the contribution per driver hour. Do not look the contribution per mile, because mile is not the limiting factor. The limiting factor or the shortage here is the mile, the hours. So that's why we have to look at the hours. So based on the hours, you can see RTU5 give me more contribution because it gives me 200 per hour, but RT4 give me only 100 per hour. So you're not going to go for the 100, we'll go for the 200 first. So I'll say ranking 1 and ranking 2. That means I'm going to drive all the contract for RT5 first, and if I have any hour left, then I'll go for the RT4. The next one, we have total driver time available. So we have total 52 hours available. So we said we have total 52 hours. And driver times allocated hours. So how many hours we can allocate for which contract? Now we said you're going to make all the RT5 first. So RT5 need total 24 hours. So I said I'm going to use all the 24 hours for the RT5. And any hours left, I'm going to use it for the RT4. So from the 52, if I use 24 for the RT5, the remaining will be 28 hours that I'm going to use for the RT4. The number of mile operates. So how many miles I can drive with this hour. So if I take all this 24 hours, I'll be able to travel 400 mile for the RT5. So 400 mile for the RT5, and this one for the 28 hours, we'll see how many miles we can travel. So with the 56 hours, we can travel 800 miles. So we said 800 miles we can travel if we have 56 hours. So let's have a look. In every hour, how many miles we can travel? 800 divided 56, that is 14.28, and we'll multiply by 28. And that will give me the total 399.99. So it's a 400 mile we can travel by using 28 hours. So we said 400 mile will be able to travel. Then total contribution earned. So every hour we have a contribution 100. So for the 28 hours, the total contribution will be 2800. And this one, every hour the contribution is 200. So for the 24 hours, the contribution will be 4800. That's it. So the total contribution is 28 plus 48. That gives me 7600. Then finally, have some fixed cost. The question said we have a fixed cost. So let's try to see what is the fixed cost. So if we go a little bit up, you can see it here actually. The fixed cost is total 7200. So we said the fixed cost 7200. So it takes 7200 fixed cost. So 7600 minus 7200 is gives me the profit 400. And that's it. So this question normally come in the exam is quite examinable question. So make sure you revise the limiting factor question and you understand how does it work, so that if this question come to the exam, you can answer it very well. All right, let's move to the next one. The next part we have here, complete the following sentence using your result from A above. They said root 5, we're going to make it fast, isn't it? Root 5 should be selected first contract to operate the next month at as it has the highest profit, isn't it, or contribution per hour. I'm going to choose this contract first, RT5, because it will give me the more contribution per driver hour. I think that's it for our question number 7. So on the next video, I'll try to make question 8, 9, and 10. Hopefully this video will be helpful for you. And thank you everyone for watching. If you have any question, feel free to email me and I'll try to help if I can. And obviously for any other support, you can always email me.